Now, airports, banking, healthcare, a major tech failure hit these industries across the world. Cybersecurity firm CrowdStrike says a defect in one of its software updates hit Windows operating systems. In South Africa, at least 2 major banks experienced service disruptions. Customers complaining they were not able to make payments using their bank cards at grocery stores and gas stations or use ATMs. So what happened? Joining us from London is Tony Tiyou. He's a technology expert. Tony Tiyou, welcome to our program. Can you please first explain how did this major glitch come to happen?
Effectively, first of all, thank you for having me. So the major glitch was actually caused by a flawed update of a software called CrowdStrike. That's the antivirus software, which is specifically designed to protect Microsoft Windows devices. And what happened is this update included a defect that impacted Windows PCs, and that led to widespread IT outages. But according to them, so the issue was actually isolated and it's not a security or cyber attack. So we're talking about a single rogue file here that needed to be deleted. So that's what the issue was or is.
So I gave the example of South Africa. Were there other African countries that were impacted?
Yeah, it's fair to say that, yes, we talk clearly about South Africa because they've mentioned that. But I firmly believe that other countries were impacted. I can give you an example of myself, for example. Part of my team is actually based in Kenya. And I know today I was actually meant to do a transaction to a team member, and I just couldn't do it. But initially, I couldn't understand why. Obviously, when I came out to understand the widespread IT outage, so I knew, obviously, where it was coming from. And that's not surprising, right? Because when we look at the kind of sector that have been impacted, so we're talking about a global impact. So we're talking about airport and airlines with many cancellations we've seen in major airports, London, Tokyo, Amsterdam. You surely have the same in Africa, right? So because Africa is not immune. Banking and healthcare, I've just mentioned about that. So payment be rejected, rail services, emergencies. So I think it's not difficult to understand that other countries would have been affected, on top of South Africa.
So this glitch, we can say, kind of showed the vulnerability of the world, or connected world. What about the vulnerability of the continent?
Yeah, we're living today in a very much globalized world, isn't it, right? And you say that, when Microsoft sneezes, obviously the world catch cold, and that's the same as well for Africa. So the level of vulnerability here is quite significant because we're talking about interconnected system, many critical services, transportation, healthcare, banking, mentioned that they rely on IT systems. So if you have a failure in one of those systems, it will cascade in all those other sectors, but also our countries. So we all depend on those major software providers. So, when you have a software provider like, CrowdStrike for cybersecurity, so if there's an issue, it would affect numerous organizations and services simultaneously. And the recovery is complex. That's what we've seen, right? So you need many interventions. So clearly, Africa is also impacted. But I would say maybe to a lesser extent, for the simple reason that the digital infrastructure in Africa is not as large and robust as other continents. So where many countries and many services in Africa still rely, let's say, on analog system, so where we have to do things, handwritten. So in here, clearly, obviously, it seems to have been an advantage. So I would say, yes, Africa is vulnerable to those issues that we see globally, but maybe to a lesser extent because the digital infrastructure is not as widespread as the rest of the other continent.
Well, thank you, Tony Tiyou, to explain in layman terms what happened. Thank you very much for your intervention.
It was a pleasure.